Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cloud-Based Mayhem. This show is with Dilan Benedeti, and we recorded this the first time before I left for the X-Alps back in May, and then submitted it all to Miles, and the sound wasn't good enough. I didn't pick that up when we were doing the recording, so we had to do it again. So this is take 2. I think this one's a lot better, so that worked out anyway. And that was what caused a little bit of the delay, which we are hopefully now caught up with. So I apologize for the missing show after the X-Alps, but hopefully we're all caught up with our regularly scheduled programming. A show every 2 weeks. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into this one. Just wanted to remind you all, I said this in the last show, but that we've got this really cool hike and fly race, an adventure class and pro class coming up in late September, early October at the Red Rocks Fly-In, Red Rocks X. It's $5,000 of prize money for the winner of the pro class, which will be 30 participants in that one if we fill it all up. More information on cuasa.com, cuasa.com, and we're hopefully by the time this is out, we'll have a website and more information there, but you can always reach out to me if you need anything else with that. Proves it's going to be an awesome event and in a beautiful part of the world, and it'll be a lot of fun. So hope to see y'all out there. This show with Dilan, I did some acro training with Dilan in conjunction with him giving one of his SIV courses out at Lake Berryessa in California. He's got a fascinating history. He's Italian, started flying in Italy way back when, spent a bunch of years in Morocco under the tutelage of Toby Colomb, who I've also spent a bunch of time flying with back in the day. And then he spent years and years, I think 7 years or more, out in Nepal training acro and flying tandems. And then he came back to the States and got married, had some kids, and he started this in Nepal, but became an SIV instructor under the tutelage of the whole APPI system. And I was super impressed with what I saw out there and how he runs things, and his toe techs and his approach to SIV is awesome. It's really, really terrific. And so I wanted to get him on the show to talk about a little bit about his history, but just about risk homeostasis and conflict of interest with instructors and selling gear, and some of the holes we've dug ourselves in here in the States under our system of training and coaching and lack of, I guess, compared with other parts of the world, and SIV and maneuvers and a whole bunch of stuff. I think you'll enjoy this. There's a lot here, and we had a lot of fun with this talk. Please enjoy Dilan Benedeti. Dilan, take 2, buddy. It's great to have you back again on the show. I know we did this before I left for Europe, and this will just be tighter. We had some sound problems with that one, so this is awesome. I get a chance to do this all with you yet again, and it's good to see your smiling face. I know you've been doing these courses all summer. The first one this season was with Ben and I, and you had a whole big gaggle of students, and we'll get into how awesome that was. It ended up saving my life, as you know. But I wanted to just introduce you to the audience before we get into all the topics we're going to cover, and give us a little bit of your background. How you learned's pretty fun, and then how you've spent your time since when you learned is pretty fun. And now you're out in California, even though you're Italian. You must be chasing the good pizza out there.
Well, first, again, thank you for re-having me, I guess, because it's take 2, and it's always a pleasure and an honor to be part of this great platform that you have, and thanks for everything you do, because it's just insane. I'll mention my part of the thanks for what changed me and the way I approach what we do and what I do personally. So, but I guess we'll talk about that later. And it's great to see you and your smile back after the race. That kept me glued to that screen. As I told you, that phone call, probably my screen time went up close to an high school girl. I was like unbelievable. I was like waking up in the middle of the night just to check. But yeah, that was pretty great, man. Thank you. So how this started? Well, it started in 2008 when I was taking this break or sabbatic, whatever, from my old job. I was working as a war photographer for the UNICEF, and I was kind of losing it in a way. I was like pushing myself too hard, I guess, and I needed a break. So I went to the Alps in Italy and started working with cows and horses, anything that kept me away from the past work environment was good. And then one day I saw this guy. I was walking a horse with a little girl on it. I was working for these people that had horses. They used to do walks with kids. And I remember I was walking this little girl on the horse, and I looked up and I see this glider coming in the middle of the valleys. You know, that valley is the Val Tournanche in Italy, where
Yes.
you got the Matter and the Cervino right up top, like in between this mountain, just
I
comes up.
just flew over it a little over a
Yeah.
week ago. Yeah. It was pretty
And
rowdy
now
that
I'm
day, but
jealous.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And so I was walking her and I saw this glider. It was an acro glider. I didn't know, obviously, back then. And it was Anthony Green, one of the acro twin brothers from California. And he started doing Ellie's. Well, now I know what he was doing, but back then I was like, whoa, what is that? I want to do that. And I remember walking straight to the owner of the horses and just with this little girl. I gave him the horse and I said, I got to go. And I went to see Anthony at the landing. And I'm like, what is this? What is this thing you're doing? I want to do this. And the instructor was there. The local school instructor was there. So in probably 30 minutes, we had an agreement that he was going to teach me flying, and I was going to make cocktails for him in this bar that he had at the landing. So it was like all set up. And the day after, he gave me an old glider and a harness. And that's kind of how it started. It was pretty fast, yeah. But I made a mistake, because I said from the beginning I said, dude, that's what I want to do. What he does, I want to do what this guy was doing, and that probably didn't didn't set the tone right, because he was pretty scared, and he kept me on the ground for a good 10 months without letting me go to takeoff, and I was just allowed to kite, and that's what I did. 10 months kiting. I was there 6, 7, 8 hours a day. I remember having this huge bruise on my chest. Like it was like purple, green, and yellow. The chest strap was like, I was pushing, wind, no rain, but yeah, I was there a lot, let's say. Yeah, and then after 10 months, he kind of had to. So he brought me up, did my first flight there. And it started going fast. I was flying like 8, 9 times a day. This place is probably 25 minutes ride to take off. And when you take off, if you go in the middle of the valley, you have 800 meters height that you can burn, like doing spiral, trying wingovers, and trying to do everything that performance flying. And Jockey showing that DVD. They were like fixing my DVD recorder for and my DVD player for months, and then whatever from there. Winter came, and somebody said, Morocco is flyable, and I lived in Morocco before. I speak the language, so I remember in 2 days I bought the tickets for Morocco, moved to Morocco for the winter, and start flying again 7, 8 hours a day nonstop until I met Toby. And Toby is that Toby Colombi that is the one that probably made all of this happen in a way, because he pushed me to go against the thing that I was that I would never imagine I was going to do was teaching paragliding. I was from the beginning when I was seeing all my friends with the radio, staying on the ground, teaching people. I was like, nope, that's not what I want to do. I'm never going to be an instructor. I want to fly. I don't want to be the guy on the ground with the radio. Nope. Till Toby one day gave me a job, and that's kind of where this started, you know. I spent, I think, a good couple of years going back and forth from Morocco because it was easy access from Italy. It was like $30 plane ticket. And then I was getting more and more into acro. And when I started doing Ls over the ground, I tossed 4 times. 4 reserve toss in Morocco, over the ground, away from a hospital. And I got lucky. 4 times I was like, I landed on my feet. Even the time when I throw reserve, it went straight in my line, and I had to pull those bridles to get it open, and then it opened probably similar to your case. It opened. I felt the opening, and in a fraction of a second, I hit the ground. And standing up, I was like this soft patch and like freshly worked from farmers, I guess, and that day was the day where at the dinner table, somebody started talking about this place in Nepal with the lake, good for acro pilots. And I didn't know anything about it. It was like, so I went to see the guy after dinner. I'm like, what was that place again? You were Pokhara, something like that. And he goes, yeah, this place in Nepal. I mean, it's not really high over the lake, but there's a lake. There's a lot of acro pilot there. And it's like, it's just crazy. I'm like, okay. And so day after I went to Marrakesh and bought a plane ticket for Nepal, and boom. Soon enough, I think I went back to Italy and then left for Nepal. I went back to Italy and then left for Nepal. Yeah. So.
And was Nepal, you were making a living there? You were doing tandems?
Yeah. Well, initially, which actually I think it was just for 2 weeks, and then I stayed for 7 years. And, wow. But I didn't have it. I just had my acroglider with me, and then staying there, made some really good friends. One of them, Peter Wolf, and he's the one that actually gave me my first job as a tandem pilot. It was like, and ever thankful for that, because it started a kind of a crazy life, you know. And back then, poker was still the golden age. We were making a lot of tandems. There were not so many schools. There were like 6 structure, I think. Now there's probably around 80. With 6 pilots each. So six schools with 6 pilots each were going up and down, and we were making a lot of money. I mean, for a country where with $500 you live like a king, we sometimes $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month,
Jeez. Plus
picture money. It's just insane. You need nothing to live, and so you can even put away money, which was a first for me. I was like, wow, look at this. I have money on the side. It's like, how did this happen? And
wow.
And that's where with Bella was there, Jamie, a lot of people that you know. It was seriously the golden age. It was like just amazing. And not that it's not amazing now, but it's changed. It's not the same now. It's like, plus with the airport coming.
But your passion then was still very much acro. You weren't really into XC yet like you are now. It was acro and tandems.
Well, yeah, I mean, my XC glider was my tandem, you know. Yeah. I didn't have enough money, or maybe I had the money, but I never thought about buying an XC, because when I was now doing tandem, I was up and down doing acro. So before tandem it was acro, or if in between tandem there was a hole in the schedule and it's like they needed only 5 pilots instead of 6, I'd go up with the Jeep and do acro, and it was just like acro. The pre-infinity. So when you put in your head that you want to learn infinity, it's like that's what you do, you know. you lose your brain out of it. And that's slowly tandem after tandem. And then David Arufat, that is which is the owner, is my mentor, and it's thanks to him if I'm an SIV instructor today, because he asked me if I wanted to become an SIV instructor. Now, I already had my comp results with the championship in Italy, and I had my instructor license with the EPPI already. David Arufat is the founder of EPPI. He created the entire system, and then it became too big for him to be able to actually follow the entire thing. But he started it, and he started it in Nepal. So coming back from that comp, he asked, everything started in Nepal with him, and he's this instructor from Switzerland, and acro pilot and SAV instructor and acro training from Switzerland that lived in Nepal for many years. Actually, he was one of the first with Adam Hill and Frontier Paragliding, which back then had another name. I think it was Sunrise, and then they split. But that's those two, him and Adam, they kind of started everything in Nepal. And David started at PPI, and he asked me if I wanted to become an SAV instructor. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I started studying with him and following him around for SAV, and slowly got me. Him and Mathieu Bram, also a French instructor, really good SAV instructor and acro pilot. Him and Sabrina, his wife, they helped me a lot, and they are my mentor. They taught me everything I knew back then, and got me into this. So I started doing SIV for them.
I was just going to say, one of the things that really caught me in watching you operate and watching your courses and your students was I remember watching Jockey with this too. There's so much happening that you guys seem to be ahead of. You can predict what's going to happen before it actually happens. And in talking to Logan, one of your tow techs and very keen pilot who's over chasing in Europe right now, he just competed in the Eiger. He talked about it, that it's so much observation. What you get from being a tow tech and towing people all day, every day, over and over again, all summer, is being able to just observe. I can understand the maneuvers, but to see it and tell people what they're doing, you kind of have to be ahead of the game the whole time. And it seems like you really have to spend, I guess, years, right? Just observing, just watching it, being kind of the low guy on the totem pole or girl on the totem pole, and doing the towing or doing the observation or running the boat or running the rescue boat. How much of it is it just watching versus you being an acro pilot and doing these maneuvers over and over again? I guess it's a combo of both, but.
Yeah, I guess it is. Most of it is watching, and also it's true that most of the time when I tell the student that they're going to have a collapse before that happens, a couple of seconds before, because you see what is going to lead to a collapse. Okay, you're late, it's going to collapse, stands up, and 1, 2, bam, collapse. So that's kind of I always say that it's very addictive for me, because I think I do get in some mild flow state when I coach. That's why when I get the 15-second signal, nobody's allowed to talk to me, and probably that's why I love it so much. But yes, observation, and there's some kind of mirror neuroning involved for sure. The fact that I did in the past, that I went through all that learning process with and the mistake and errors that are somehow imprinted in my subconscious. That helps a lot when it comes to watching someone doing something, especially when they do it wrong, knowing what's going to happen and be ahead. And if it's something that needs correction, that instead of just go say, if it's going to have a little frontal, you just go, hey, it's going to have a collapse, just go and zap. But if something that needs immediate, like go full brake, stop it, or low, lock your elbow, brake towards it. If you have to stop an auto rotation, then you have a different input. But you do see and know what's going to happen ahead, way before that happens, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like you had things stacked up really quite well that I'm sure you weren't thinking about it back then when you were in Nepal practicing acro, but it doesn't seem like it's not riding a bike. It's not something that you can just, okay, I've been flying for 10 years, I can be an SIV instructor. You've got to have a certain you've got to have the observation time, you've got to have the maneuvers, just down, you've got to have, and that means being an acro pilot to me.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when first I came to the US, I was and I was seeing that several people doing clinics with no acro background, not being certified because the system here, I mean, there's no, that still now it doesn't exist. And even if Yushpa now are like pretty, initially I think I heard you also say, hey, Yushpa is this, like that Yushpa is discouraging people from taking an SIV. And that's what I heard and thought at the beginning. And lately, especially last year with COVID, when we were kind of struggling to get back at work, and Marty and other from the USPA were incredibly helpful. They send letter to the BOR explaining what I do and wow, it's so vital that I'm up there at the lake doing it. So it was pretty impressive what they do, and it changed my idea on it. You know, I thought it was like, oh no, don't go for an SIV, it's dangerous. You know, liability and also like again looking around and seeing people with the tow and with the winch and the boat doing clinic without any acro background. I was like, well, that's not right, you know. And if you go to see Fabian and you want to become an SIV instructor, I mean, the exam you have to do tumbling. If you can tumble, you can probably not pass. You're not going to become an SIV instructor.
That's awesome.
Well, I mean, there's a reason. It's the way I see it is, if I have to send someone to learn P1, P2, to learn paragliding in general, I want to send like my sister, for example, to someone that did himself at least 1,000 takeoff and 1,000 landing, right?
Sure.
So if I want to send my my little sister to learn stalls, I will try to send her to someone that did 1,000 stall himself, and that's, I mean,
yeah.
Only Acropilot did that many stalls. You know, we're not talking about the magic number, 100 stall, 200 stall. No, we're talking about thousands of stalls. You know, it's like we do stall to enter alley, to exit infinity, to recover from a Mactus. We're stalling all the time. So but again,
well, that's a good Dylan. That's a good transition. Before we started talking about you, there were some subjects that you really wanted to cover, and this seems like a really important one, and that's standardized training. You know, to me, especially this part of the world, North America, your training is 100% dependent on who you go to. I mean, there is no syllabus like the APPI offers that is, you're going to do this, and then you're going to learn this, and then you're going to learn this, and this is why. This is why these things are important. It's totally dependent on, you know, do I go to Dylan or do I go to somebody else? I'm going to learn completely different, maybe not totally different things, but, you know, the emphasis is going to be different, the maneuvers, the order that you get taught them in, and not just SIV. I'm talking P1.
Everything.
You know, from
yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's difficult. Okay, so we are with paragliding so small still in the U.S., and there is an effort to grow the sport, and probably because we want the sport to grow, we're sacrificing quality over quantity in a way. What happened? So what you're saying makes sense. Like I remember, I heard someone, probably it was on the show with you, and I thought that guy was super smart because he say, hey, when it came down to choose where to go and where to learn, so I did my research. I found out which one were the 3 best pilots in the US or 5 best pilots in the US. Then I did another research and trying to find out where did they learn, and I came up with only 2 schools, and I chose one of the 2. That was like, whoa, that's pretty smart, you know. But it should not be that way.
No, you should be able to go to any school
not.
and learn how to drive.
Exactly. And so every instructor, I mean, then obviously there's the big school, but with the big name, the guy that owns the school that is like smart enough to surround himself with good instructors, and that's always going to happen. Now, even in countries where they have a standardized training, but the thing with what happened here, and what I think is just, I heard you saying also a lot of times that or people asking why the Swiss and the French why they're so good. And obviously, when we ask that question, is we're comparing it to us in the U.S. Obviously, why are they so good compared to us? Because we can't compare it to anybody else. I mean, that's what we have at hand. That's what we can see. And the answer is often, oh, the Swiss have the money and the French have the coaches, but it's not. So in France, for example, and I'm going to say sorry for this because I know my wife and some of my friends will start drinking because every time they think I say Europe is better than the US, now they have this drinking game on it. So, but in France, um, to become an instructor, a paragliding instructor, first to apply, you need competition results. You need 2 comps where you rank yourself in the first third. And comps in France, they're like high level.
Okay. In other words, you're an epically good pilot.
Exactly.
Right
to
there.
start with.
To do that in France, you're an epically good pilot.
And you have passion, you have everything, you have motivation, you have like commitment.
You chase it, you get the hours.
You're chasing it. Exactly. Yeah. So once you have the comps, once you have the comps result, then you can apply. And if they accept your application, you enter the school. And it's 10 months mandatory working in the school with no payment. Okay, so you need a bank loan, obviously, because you need to pay for your bills. And it costs you around probably $10,000 to $15,000. And every weekend, or sometimes every other weekend, you have a college grade exam organized by the government. It's like the Secretary of Sports, la jeunesse, le ministère des Jeunesse et des Sports. It's like it's the same thing for mountain guide, river guide, ski instructors. They all go through the same process. And actually, the initial part of the studying, it's the same for everybody. And then you choose your branch. You go for, again, river guide, mountain guide.
Yeah, so it's like becoming an IFMGA guide. It's a lifetime. It's a career. It's not something you just do half-ass. It takes massive commitment, both time-wise, money-wise, talent-wise. Yeah, it's a totally different.
And at the end, what that brings is that no matter if you're the guy that wants to learn paragliding, instead of having to go through that process that very smart guy, I think, went through, no matter which school you hit, you're going to have an instructor that has the same background and is as knowledgeable as the school next door. Then it comes down only to personality. It's like you like the guy, it goes with who you are. You stay, you don't, you go to the next one. Okay, but it's not gambling. It's not like when you don't know better. It turns this thing into it's gambling.
It's not Russian roulette. Yeah, here it is literally, to me, it's Russian roulette, because you're aviating, you're playing with gravity in the ground, and you're literally, okay, does this barrel have the bullet?
Well, exactly. But then again, depending on who you are, you might be able. And so think about it. In the US, probably you need 1 week when you do your instructor clinic, your basic instructor clinic. So you do 1 week probably, or a weekend, probably a little more than a weekend, and then you have to do a little apprentice, and you can become an instructor. And not long after that, you can open a school and start selling gears. And so for that, what you need, I think, is a P3, no tandem license, and no SIV experience. So you never did an SIV, you don't have a tandem license, and 2 weeks before you were, whatever, let's not go that far. I think let's be nice. But and it's not to blame them. It's not to blame this young instructors that are just like passionate and they try. And what's the reasoning behind it? It's like, oh, but if we want to grow the sport, we need to make it easy to become an instructor so we can have more and spread this thing that we love so much. But I think by doing that, again, it's like we're sacrificing quality over quantity, It's like, and it doesn't seem right to me. I joke about it, the SIV with students, like most instructors in the United States probably don't have an SIV, never did an SIV. And so when I have a P2 with 20 hours, the second he goes back home, he'll have probably more experience than his own instructors. And the other thing is like, if you remember when you started flying, you fall in love with the guy that taught you how to fly. I mean, it's normal. This is like this guy just taught you how to fly. It's the coolest thing you've ever done with your life. Even if you had crazy experience with your life, this is pretty cool. So it's difficult to question them. It's difficult not to put them on the pedestal. It's difficult to start even looking around and start comparing what you're getting with what you should be getting. So, and especially again, if there's a community that is being created around this, and now finally, for probably the first time in your life, you feel that you belong to something, and there's a lot that goes with it. You know, it's pretty. I think we should, but as the fact that we say, oh, but it's so small in the US that we have to grow it, and so this is the way to do it, and we can't put too many rules. I think again, the fact that we aren't in such a young nation, as we have the responsibility to look at others and do better.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think the numbers back all this up. I mean, we attract lots of people to the sport. This is going to be your next thing. And then they all leave it. And the reason they all leave it is because they're getting shit instruction and they get scared, and the attrition handles the growth. You know, it just cuts it right off. We get the same number of people flying in the States now that we did 10 years ago. The gliders are better. The sites are better. You know, we know a lot more. We got better weather apps. We've got everything's on our side to attract more people to the sport, but it doesn't happen. But well, like I said, the attrition takes care of the growth. And so it's not working. So if it's not working, you got to change it.
I think it will. I think it will. Because I ask questions, you know, like, why is it like this? And then you hear, oh, it's because there's some old hang glider pilot in the USPA board that they're refused to change stuff, to set rules, and then obviously you end up always hearing, which this is not just the U.S., this is everywhere when you talk to old school pilots, and the freedom, and then if you put too many rules like mandatory license, then you affect the freedom of the free flights, and I always answer to that with because even in France, with all we said about France, there's no mandatory license. In France, you can go and buy your glider on eBay and pay for the third-party insurance, and you can go fly it. You don't need the license is not required. But everybody goes to a school because they all know people that come from the school. They know that the system is so good and the instructors are so good. Why would you do it by yourself? I mean, yes, there are those that don't have the money, and they have a good friend that is a pilot instructor, or even just a good pilot, and they'll learn. And it's not that everybody goes to a school, obviously, but freedom. When we start talking about that, I mean, if you're not properly trained, if you don't know what you're doing, now every time you fly, now I'm not free.
Yeah,
because you're dangerous and you put me in danger. Okay. Yes, you're by yourself. Yes, it's you're the pilot in command. It's an individualistic sport, but we fly together. And if the only mistake that I made today is to take off after you, and now I'm below you in the terminal, I'm going to pay for your mistake. You know, if you have a collapse and you go into an auto and you fall into my glider when we're close to the terrain and stuff. And so your freedom should stop when mine starts. And if you're a dangerous pilot, probably you're affecting my own freedom. So it's like, if that's an argument that we can bring to this freedom thing, the free flight spirit,
you're not buying.
I love the idea, but not really.
Yeah.
You know?
So why? Let's wrap the initial thing up. Well, why do we lose so many pilots? Is it that? Is it why is the attrition rate so high? Because it's also really high in things like kite surfing that are much less risky. It used to be very risky. The initial kites and everything were a lot more dangerous, but it's kind of the same there. You learn it, you fall in love with it. It's super awesome. It's amazing. You're using the wind to power yourself along, and then inevitably the attrition rate is really high. You blow a knee. I mean, the accidents are different in kite surfing. They're not nearly as extreme as paragliding, because you're on the water typically, and you're not using, gravity's not such a killer. But is it injuries? Is it fear? Is it something that scares people, or is it something else? Is it just lack of training?
So I think it's a bit of everything. I want to start with the optimistic one. And the optimistic one, I think, because I spent time thinking about it. So what can we do to change this? I think part of it is just human nature. Okay. A lot of the students that come into paragliding, they're just like testing things in life, you do something, you think you like it, you fall in love with it, and then you get bored, you want to do something else, and now you do kite surfing. So we go through phases. We all did. So it's like when you grow up, you're a teenager, you listen to heavy metal, and then 2 months later, now you grow dreadlocks and you have a djembe on and you listen to reggae. So it's like we do that. It's part of who we are. So I think that a lot of people that come through the sport, they're just exploring, experimenting, and until they finally find what they love and stick with it. But the other reason for it is so another thing that I think caused people to leave is we tend to probably, again, for the same reason, we're trying to grow a sport, so we don't want to scare people, and we tend to keep the danger of it hidden. When people first start,
we're not being
in
straight
school,
with people in a sense.
Exactly. And when people start, you're not allowed to mention word like accident, crash, death, or danger, because otherwise you scare them away. So I don't think that's right. I think any adults that starts, or even younger people that starts, they should be put in a position where they can make an informed and smart decision before starting, before getting into this. There's no point of not talking about like the accident. I mean, I'm all for it. Like, there's a time and a place to talk about accident. If we're going up on takeoff, or even if we're on takeoff, you're in the van, you start talking about crashing and accident, I'm the first one that tells the driver to stop it. Like,
yeah,
I will ask you
we're not
to
talking about that right now.
leave the sheep. That's not the right place or time. But when you have a student, I think before they invest time, energy, and money, they should be put in front of this is aviation, And I don't know if it was Bill Beck or Mitch Mackley in that podcast that said, this thing, every time you take it out of the bag, can kill you.
Yeah.
And probably that's not the right way to say it to a student that is about to start, or that is even that is thinking about getting into paragliding. But I think the more honest we are, the better. That will probably filter people, instead of having them starting this thing falsely believing that they're safe, because if you get a low B, you're safe. And then one day, once they start really like looking around and start seeing that people die doing this, or people break their backs, or they have accident, or like you said, they twist their knee, they break their knee, they break an ankle, and now they suddenly realize, like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want this in my life. This is not what I thought. This is not what I was like brought to believe. I mean, this thing is dangerous. And that's when they go, shit, I'm out, and so that's part of it. And for those who don't get to that point, I think what also could contribute to that is premature exposure to condition that are not right for them.
Yeah.
And what I mean, I don't know if you listen to that podcast that Judy Moore had with this guy, Tony. He's a trained psychology and a paraglider. I learned a lot from him, and I actually started using a lot of that in my classes. As when you first start this, when you are a novice and in a way, you don't speak the language. Any community, paragliding community, ski, snowboard, they all have their own languages that goes with it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you just enter this community, you're not absorbing in it and you don't speak the language yet. And so obviously the second you start naming something, or you build a language around something, now the reality is more of a socially constructed one. So we're not, the example that he gives, and I thought was brilliant. It's like a walker will walk on the edge on a cliff, look down and see a place where he can fall and die. And the paragliding pilot, with an experienced paragliding pilot, will walk in the same spot and look down and see, is it soarable? Where are the trigger points? Is this place flyable? Is there a house thermal here? So again, it's all about that language, So when you still do not speak the language and you're not, again, absorbed into this community, you go through turbulence, for example. That's what he said. You go through turbulence, which is thermals are turbulence for definition, and you're uncomfortable. You feel like you're the victim of this incomprehensible dark forces that are like tossing you all over the place. But the way he put it down, it says, I love that. Like, I repeat this to my students all the time. It says, thermal are an acquired taste. Like whiskey and cigarette, you remember your first whiskey?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah,
I like it now.
well, but then you force yourself because the older guy is saying the whiskey is good, and what do? You keep trying until you actually start. Oh, this is actually really good, And the same thing with thermals. In the community, the cross-country pilot with the higher status, with the reputation, or even worse, the sky god. So I'd like to talk about that once, but say they're all saying that thermals are great because they get you high up, and then you can go cross-country. So the student that is even now being absorbed into this new language, into this new community, will force himself to suck it up and get used to thermal till you actually learn how to use them and climb. When doing that, I mean, there's no other way. I think you see it like me. I mean, to learn, you need to expose yourself to stronger and stronger condition, right? I mean, that's how we learn. We have no choice. If you always stay in laminar flow and fly early in the morning and fly late in the day, you'll never learn what we just mentioned. But the problem is, how fast are you going? How fast are you moving that bar? Okay. Back to sport psychology, they often talk about the 4% rule. Remember Mitch talking about that. And since I know that you're into flow and flow state, and you probably read all the books that I read, and I went pretty deep into that rabbit hole, and I'm not out yet. You remember that one of the main components of a flow state is the balance between challenge and skills. Okay. Every time that what you're doing is above that line, it can easily turn into something that it's too much, overwhelming, frustrating, therefore dangerous. Same thing when it's below. When it's below, it could be boring, distractive, and same
complacent.
Thing, dangerous. Exactly. So if we don't move that bar slow enough, we'll end up by putting people in that position. Where what they're going through, what they're experiencing is too much, and it's frustrating, and it's overwhelming and dangerous. Okay, and even without end up having an incident or an accident, it could be enough for them to say, "Fuck this," I'm out. I don't want this. How can we not do that? That's the tough one. Because put yourself in the school shoes as an instructor that has like maybe 5 people coming through at the same time for the program, P1, P2, and they're all done with their like 7 to 10 days at the hill. They all did their 25 flights, but we're all different, right? We're all different because we have different experience, different things we did in the past. I think we talked about when we were up at the lake, when you have like cross-referencing from your past, like kayaking or like rock climbing or flow sports in general, this might be a little easier for you to learn, and when
Yeah.
you don't, it might take a little longer. So you always have like 5, 6 people that are done with the program at the same time. And now it's time for the mountain flight, and you bring them up to take off. It's always difficult to point a finger and say, hey, yeah, not you. Today is good for you, good for you, good for you, but not for you.
Hmm.
It's tough. We're dealing with ego. We all have one. And actually in paragliding, I think we top the world when it
Yeah.
comes to ego.
Yeah.
We're pretty good at it. Yeah. And so I don't know if there's actually a way to do that, because literally when you are in that position, when you don't speak the language, you're not observing the community, you're fragile in the sense that anything that happens to you, the lack of understanding, that's if you can analyze what happened and understand it completely, well, that's when you run into the risk of getting traumatized.
Hmm.
And we all know how difficult it is, how easy it is to imprint a trauma, like a negative experience in your subconscious, and how difficult it is to get it out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start dealing with the whole brain, and it's a lot more difficult. So that's probably also one of the reason why we lose so many people.
Yeah.
I heard some numbers I don't know what to trust when it comes down to numbers. It's like 8 out of 10 they leave after 3 months, 4 months, and it's like
Yeah, which is similar. I think it's 8 or 9 out of 10 kayaking. I don't know. I don't think it's that high for kite surfing, but when I learned how to kayak, it was mid '90s, and I think I went through with 13 other paddlers. We all learned. We did the pool, and then we did the theory, and we went out and paddled some class 2 stuff. A year later, I was the only one that was still paddling. That
that's
everybody else had
insane.
dropped out, and every one of them was fear. Every single one of them had gotten in a situation, gone upside down, freaked them out. Nobody got hurt that I know of. Nobody died. It was just, it went from fun to scary, and that was it. And then we're done.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you were up at the lake, you had to leave because you had your plane. But at the end of every class, I started probably a couple of years ago. I say to all students, because most of them, you were up there, you saw like there's a lot of people with 5 hours, 10 hours, and they
Yeah.
do great. It's
Oh, it
just
was incredible.
insane how
It
good
was
they do.
awesome. Yeah, it was
This,
awesome.
yeah, again, no bad habits, no parasite, no like
Yeah.
not too much YouTube or para
Yeah.
waiting talk. So
Just fresh
they're not
slates. Just
contaminated. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they do it. They do it. But at the end of the clinic, I always say, hey, if you do, when you go home, if you do go through something that scares you, in anything that you don't understand, just call me. Call me.
Mm.
And I started as my little contribution to this, like to stop people from getting to the point where they're hitting their head against the wall. They don't have anybody to explain exactly what happened to them. Because again, once you have a full understanding, once you can analyze you can skip getting traumatized, or you can go
Totally.
around, like
Yep.
not fall into the
Yep.
hole and go. And it started as a like something that I throw out there. And today, I spend probably 5-6 hours every week when I'm not at the SIV talking to people on the phone.
Mm.
And
That's great.
you, when you had your accident, or co-pilots, even like pilots that didn't do my class but they heard from a friend that I do that, they called, say,
Yeah.
hey dude, I know I didn't do an SIV with you, but this happened to me. It's like, and again, I'm obviously not being there, I didn't see it, but with their recollection, and which again, go for to remember it, you need to have. I don't know if you remember when you first told me about the accident. The first thing that I captured from your recollection was the slow motion part. When you said that,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yes, we have a lot to
Mm-hmm.
work with,
Mm-hmm.
because you're an experienced pilot. So you went to the frame freeze, you were in flow, so elongated time, and
Mm-hmm.
you remember like in slow
Everything.
motion what happened. So we have all
Yeah.
small
Everything.
details that can actually. You remember we put the pieces together. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, when you told me the way you reached for the reserve and where you looked at right after you had a collapse, it was like great, But someone that just started this don't have that, you know.
Sure.
And if often after an accident, if you go see a novice and a pilot that is not that experienced, when you ask them, they can't remember. Everything went too fast, you know. So at that point, what I do, I ask them to give me the names of people that saw the accident, and I make a few phone calls, and I get all the feedback from people, from witnesses, and with that information, I call the guy or girl back, and we go through the entire understanding process, you know, to the analysis, and
Yeah,
this is why this happened.
lack of understanding is really scary. You know, I think that I would have gone to the X Alps with, you know, definitely a fear injury if none of that made sense. If it was just like, holy shit, and then I threw my reserve, you know, but I remember everything. It all
Yeah,
made sense. It was just, okay, this happened, that's what I did to do it, and I stayed active, and then I threw, and then I hit the ground. It all made sense. It was all okay. My training took over, and you know, I was in a bad spot, and but it all worked out. But I knew why it worked out, and that's the difference.
yeah, yeah. That was great. In your case, I don't know if you remember, but that the little details. When I asked you,
Yeah.
did you see the collapse? And when you said yes, then I knew why you went into an auto. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not the collapse itself. It's like I remember you talking to Mal, which I love that podcast. I listened to it probably 3, 4, even more, 5 times, and he was mentioning about like how we have to struggle as an SIV instructor to get to fight this instinct that we have, like this trying to protect your back when you feel like you're falling out of the sky. And now what you're doing when you're doing that, you're pulling brakes. So you're overreacting and you're
Mm-hmm.
not getting out of situation. You're not using any of the exit windows because you're doing that. And the other one that we have to fight that I think it's even more important is that when we do have a collapse, if our first reaction is to look up, looking at the glider, we'll go with it because the glider, the collapse itself creates enough drugs for you to start for it to start turning. And if
Mm-hmm.
the glider starts turning, you looking at it, you go with it. I
Exacerbate it.
mean, it's just if you can do it like a little visualization and try. If you look up and the glider turns and you follow with your gaze, you're actually following it with your weight, with your body, and you go straight with it. That's a difficult one.
Mm.
That's something that
That's
I
tricky.
still do it myself. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that was
slap
tough.
myself in the face every time I do that. It's like, you idiot, you did it again. So you fly and you're like full on and schlag, big whack, and you immediate. It's I mean we're flying this piece of plastic with a bunch of strings. It's normal that when it goes schlag, you look at it. You know,
Yeah.
so training for that probably will take me forever, but I hope one day I'll be able to, you know, and just stay
Yeah.
focused on my heading, lock my elbow if I need to, and not look at the glider, you know.
Mm. Yeah, we'll have to. It's hard to explain it in audio, but it's the whole blocking with the elbow and bracing against the flying side is. I love that, and that was a really awesome takeaway. I'd never seen that. I'd never heard that. I've been practicing it since you showed that to everybody, but I think that's just describe that real quick. Let's see if we can do it without visuals, because otherwise we'll slap a video into the podcast where you can show it. But
Yeah, we
you
could
know,
maybe even do it on the simulator once when we get together. I know you're going to come for our training, so we can do that if you want. But ideally, it's like this technique that we all learn when we learn paragliding. They all say, "Oh, what do we do when if you have a collapse?" Well, throw your body on the open side, right? Lean towards the open side, towards the flying side. Okay. The problem with that is that when we fly, we do fly with this famous 2 pounds pressure or the dead weights of your arms. And when you throw your body on the opposite side, you end up applying brake. And
mhm.
now you don't have a fully open glider. You have probably 50% remaining if you're lucky. If it's more, it's even worse. But even a 50% remaining open glider, uh, the wind load changes, the stall speed changes, and the stall point changes. So
Mhm.
if you throw your body carrying that much brake, uh, you're very close to stalling your glider at ribs level. You know, it's not under your seat anymore. It's not below your butt. It's like but at your ribs, you will stall that 50% remaining open glider. When we do lock our elbow against the riser and the beaner with our fist against the riser, not pulling any brake, okay, we can't do that. And it's immediately when you do that, you're fully weight shifted towards the open side without effort. If you release the elbow, your weight shift goes back to neutral. So you're not like struggling to keep that position. It's very easy. You remain in an upright position. Your torso is straight. And the other advantage of that position is that you can always see and grab your reserve. If you have a collapse on the right and your reserve is on the right side, and now you throw your body on the left, and you have to stay fully weight shifted to clear the terrain, to get ground clearance. It requires a lot of energy. Okay, so if it takes you a long time to get to a safe place where you can actually address the problem, you'll be more tired. And again, your visual, you can't really see around because you're fully weight shifted. Okay, and you're far from your reserve. It's like sometimes in some extreme case where you need to be really fully weight shifted to keep it straight, you won't be able to grab your reserve. And every time you go for it, every time you move your weight to go for it, you'll go straight into an auto on the opposite side. But again, we'll probably like do a little video, maybe if you want to put it, that will be helpful, I think.
Yeah. Tell me, Dylan, you wanted to talk about why people choose certain gliders, which is worded differently than glider choice. We talk a lot about glider choice on the show, but I have a feeling you're going to take this in a different direction.
Why with glider choice? Yeah. So as this again, I'm not the original. I took the initially is the same guys that sat down with Judith again, and I thought it was pretty interesting, and I started talking about it with my students, and I started as an experiment with my student. I was just asking the question, and it works. It works, and slowly, I see more and more people after a clinic. They come to see me in private, and they decide to downgrade, to step down a class, or even two sometimes. Basically, I think there's a lot. If what he says is, if you ask a pilot, why did you choose this glider? Was that out of the performance? Did you look more into the performance or the safety aspect? They will all say safety, all of them. Okay. Only a few, actually, I had a couple that said performance. Okay. I bought this for performance. Okay. But that's more advanced pilot, they will choose like a Xeno instead of a Mero, whatever. What I tell them, what he actually says was, what's your biggest flight? What kind of flight do you achieve with your glider? And the numbers, wow, it's pretty stunning. It's like they could have achieved those gliders, not stepping down one class, but probably two or more.
Yeah, on an ENA.
Exactly. So you're talking about safety. You choose that glider for safety. But when I look at the flights you do today, well, you could be way safer, because I do think there's nothing safety in what we do. With the low B or an A, and looking at what you do. So I think it all comes down to he's right, Sperling, and saying that it all comes down to ego, and unfortunately for us, testosterone. Okay, so that puts us, men's, paragliding pilot men's, in a worse position than women. Because if you notice, I started looking around, and actually I started noticing it's like, oh, that's right. This is actually happening. And you see, they do not do that. They just they don't rush through classes like we do. And they have a different way of learning. It's Logan, when we were driving, saying, yeah, they have, it's more building block system that they put up. And two pilots, they start together, a boy and a girl, a man and a woman, whatever you want to say. After 2 years, they might have the same skills, the same level, but he will be on a D with a pod, and she will still be on the low B with an open harness, and she's going bigger.
Yep.
She's doing
almost
better
every time.
flights.
I've seen that
every time. And then what you hear from the landing is, she must be light. Oh, yeah, she's higher than every. Oh, she's still up because she's light on that glider. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
It's not. They don't. They just don't do it. They just don't rush through it. And part of it, again, going back to the community, I'm all for paragliding community. Okay, I think there's so many aspects of having a great paragliding community that are priceless. You know, the mentoring, the friendship, and even just sharing this thing that we love so much. But there's other side of it that are pretty dark. You know, it's like this the peer pressure or the puppy syndrome, or even just like going back to what we were saying about the status of the cross country pilot, you know. Or you hear even pilots like beginner pilots that say, yeah, but the XC pilots, you know, like if they were the separate
Right.
species, you know, they're being called the XC pilots, you know. And now some people end up wearing their gear as a badge, as a label, you know. It's like probably because they don't want to be looked at as a beginner anymore because they were in a open harness with a low B. So now they want to rush. They want to be part of the cool guys. You know what I mean? You know, it's just, they want to, the popular.
Yeah, I almost feel like, and we've talked about this a lot on the show. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but I almost feel like when you were phrasing it that way, I almost feel like it's really a community problem.
Yeah.
I feel like we're not rewarding. You know, it's the Bernie Pessels. You know, that guy's throwing down 250, 300 FAIs on a mentor every year. You know, and they should be the ones, or Urs Hari, who I had on the show, same thing. You know, he decided when he stopped doing comps and he just didn't have enough time, and he gets 5-6 big days a year now that he doesn't have the hours. He'd love to fly those gliders, you know, the hot end gliders, but he doesn't have the hours. So he kicks everybody's ass on a B. And those should be the pilots that I mean, look at Josh Cohn. He comes down and kicks everybody's ass on a low end END every year down in Valle because he's that good, you know. And I'm not saying, I mean, a low end END is not the conversation we're having right now, but you know, it's what I have always said and what I have observed is if you can't stay in the air for 10 hours on an ENB, you got no chance of doing it on an ENC. There's no way. And because staying in the air is all about observation. And if you can't observe because you're dealing with your wing, you're not going to stay in the air. And so the only way you're going to stay in the air is if you're so good and so confident on the wing that you're on. And those skills have to align. You're not going to stay in the air longer moving up. That's not how the equation works. It's opposite of that.
No.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's almost, we should almost be, you know, celebrating the pilot who can kick everybody's ass on a low end B, you know?
But in a way we are because this is not new.
Right.
We've been seeing this for years now. Pilots on B, like kicking asses, but we still have this because probably again the status and again we're in the black skirt, the big pod and everything, and look cool and be part of the XC pilots now. It's more important than that, you know. And it's like, so that thing, what you were saying comes down to currency in a way, you know. And I used to give this talk about currency to my students and make them understand. Yes, if one day they realize because now they have a new job or a kid, they just got a kid, or they can't fly as much as they used to for any reason, probably stepping downgrade one class, it's going to help them, you know, because now they don't have time to be current on the glider they're flying, you know. And I have this student and really good friend. His name is Ron Davis. He's an airline pilot, and he's been coming to SAV a lot, and they're just like good friends. Me and Maria, him and his wife Gigi, they're so helpful and they're just incredible human being. But he taught me something. I mean, he doesn't know that he did. He was up a couple of weeks ago, and he said, so he's flying this Fusion now, I think. Yeah, he's flying the Fusion now. Just beautiful C machine, great glider. But he was flying, he had his old Kibo. So he kept his old glider, you know. And every time he doesn't have a chance to fly a lot, and he thinks that it's not current enough, Well, what he does, because I usually used to tell my students, hey, let's say at the end of the season, you were flying in like rowdy condition, you were putting yourself in big air. Well, maybe you go to a winter break. You should not be like looking for those conditions. Don't start where you left. Step down a little and choose like an easier day and slowly build up again confidence and everything you need to be safe in big air. It's not because you left on the plus 12 meter per second in the Owens that you should do your first flight after 3 months, not where you're not been flying in the same condition. But he does even better. So when if he's not current, if he's not been flying for a while, he puts away his fusion and he takes out his old high beat and he goes with his Kibu and he's I thought that was that's great. And but it's again another reason why people step up all often and too early and too soon is their glider's still in good condition, and now they can sell it and make a big chunk of money to put into the new machine. And so the thing is, if this is obviously not for everybody. There's like people that again have cross-reference it from previous sports. They learn fast, they go fast to it, and they got skills and some talent, so it's not for everybody what I'm trying to say. But if your glider is given, let's say for 600 hours, okay, and now you flew 150 hours and you want to sell it because it's still in good condition so you can get the next step up, well, probably you're 450 hours short to be ready for the next one.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I like the hours too. That's about right. I think the number of hours can be really dangerous because every hour is different. It really depends. Are you ridge soaring? Are you doing SIV? Are you doing acro? Are you thermaling and the Owens? There's a huge spread there. But what it does come down to is, I think the number of hours, even if they're good hours, I'm talking thermaling and exceed that kind of hours where you're really learning, they need to be, I think we're very average and not very skilled until that number is massive, way higher than we have traditionally said. There's no, at 100 hours or 250 hours, man, you kind of suck until you're in the thousands.
And how close they are. I mean, that's the other thing. 100. That's it. I remember. I mean, again, I lost my brain into this like you did, and a lot of my friends did, and I stopped everything, quit everything else, and just went down at first into it, single-minded, like a maniac person, and I was probably close to 1,000 hours in less than 2 years, but it was like 7 hours a day all the time. If it's not 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, it's like learn how to pee in the air before I even learned that there was a pee tube available. Now I know. But most people don't have that. They can't quit their job. They're already in the responsible adults with bills, a family. And so I was like, when you said, how many hours do you have? Well, I have 150 hours. How many years you been flying? Well, I've been flying 7 years. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. So right. Yeah. There's that too. How current are the hours? And I mean, I hope this isn't coming across as preachy. I think it's just, I think it's just what I'm getting from this part of the conversation is, humility is really important. It's important for us to be humble, and I dig it. I dig it when the pilots on the Bs just kick ass. That's really sexy. And I think that's, it's something to be rewarded, applauded, pushed more, I guess.
Yeah.
Tell me about risk homeostasis. You and I had a kind of a fun conversation out in California about that, safest. You give a good talk.
Yeah. So that's another one that the same guy, Tony Spilling, talked about it. And it's like, I had my first kind of experience with it. I was in paragliding. I was bike riding with Mitch Riley. And so me and Mitch, we used to live together in Nepal. And every morning at 5 a.m. in the dark, we were meeting in front of my house. Like the first person my wife was still sleeping. I would go down the stair with my bike on the shoulder, and Mitch was there in the dark, smiling, super excited. We both had shovels, like foldable shovels in our backpack in our hydration pack. And we will climb up the mountain, Sarancut, stop in the middle, build jumps and keep climbing and build another jump and keep climbing and then go down like maniac, And we used to do that like every morning, basically, but probably not the jump building, but every morning we were going bike riding in the dark, and where I was pushing myself, risking to get a heart attack to try to fall Mitch uphill. And then sometimes it was the opposite downhill, but yeah, imagine trying to follow Mitch Riley on a bike ride. It's going uphill. It's just like insane. But now I moved to the US and moved to California. And here I am with Mitch on top of this beautiful trail up here in Santa Barbara. I don't remember if it was San Isidro or probably Romero Canyon, but let's cut it short. So I look at Mitch and I'm like, I have a full face helmet. Okay, my downhill bike, I have elbow, knee protection, probably had even a neck brace or something, I was fully covered, and I was ready to send it to go as hard as possible, And I look and I turn my head and Mitch is next to me, big smile on his face. He's wearing a helmet, obviously. He was already training for the XL. And I look at him and he's like, to me, naked. I'm like, I mean, yeah, obviously he's not. He's wearing shorts, but he has no protection. And I'm like, dude, why are you not wearing any protection? And Mitch goes, well, because if I do, then I feel safe. I'll go faster. And that's when I crash and get hurt. I'm like, that makes sense. Yeah. And that's kind of like what risk homeostasis is all about. All the studies out there, then you can Google risk homeostasis. You'll find most of the studies are on autos, like automobile drivers. But then if you Google risk homeostasis in aviation, you get some really interesting article. And basically it's like all studies show that if you tell a driver that you disable the airbag and the ABS and you cut their seatbelt off, immediately they'll start driving in a safer way. Okay. The ways that's the example there's another interesting example is the Cirrus plane. Probably the Cirrus plane is the first one that came out with a parachute and all those safety feature. It was the first in the fleet with all those incredible safety feature. And then I don't know if it was a year or two later they conducted a study and they realized that the numbers were not better, were worse. So this is how, in a way, how fucked up we are. The more we let ourselves think that we are safe because we're driving, flying something safer, the more reckless we become.
So this is the Alex Roby, the other end of the pendulum that he talked about. That he made a pretty solid argument that, and this is going against wing choice, of course, but he made a pretty solid argument for the safest wing for him to fly is an Enzo. He doesn't want pilots that think passive safety is going to save them. They're not right for this sport because they're relying on something other than themselves. And we all have to be pilots in command. And we've got to, like I think you're going to say, and Malin talked about it, there are situations where a low end B can get in a really bad scenario. And this reliance on passive safety is dangerous. So that's what
it is. Yeah. It is. And it's been, in a way, pushed by the industry. If you look at it, the advertisement, that's what I think we should change. We should try to be more vocal about it.
This is a safe wing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you saw me flying. I fly a Blackout 17. And it's a U-turn glider. It's an acro glider. I love that machine. Okay, it's just an incredible glider. My riser bag for that glider says "safe and fun." So
a Blackout 17.
Exactly. I give it to 10 students and probably 8 out of 10 will crash on takeoff and landing. But at the end, I'm the same. The one you were saying before, I'm safer when I fly a Zeno, a two-liner in rowdy condition on bar than if I fly a low B. Because again, all this safety, this passive safety thing, yes, the gliders are getting better. But if we do start relying, like you say, or relinquishing responsibility on this piece of plastic, that then we're done. We're done. What Miles says, I agree. I've been saying this for years. An A is not safe. It's safer. I'm trying slowly to try to like not use the word safe anymore. And I realize that sometimes I use it. That's safer. The safer is correct. Okay. But it's not safe. There's nothing safe about what we do. And the sooner you realize that, probably the sooner you'll start treating this as aviation and with the right amount of respect that it's due for it. You know, we were joking at the clinic and say, I want to make a t-shirt that says TIA. And this is aviation. Then it became TIFA because we throw an F in there to make it more fun. You know, people will like the t-shirt better, you know, if you throw an F in there once in a while. But yeah, so we should probably like, oh, this is the safest car we've ever, this is safe. Oh, you're flying a low beat. Oh, this is safe. Here's your bag. No, that's not. It's not. And that's risk homeostasis, you know. And the other one is another aspect of risk homeostasis that is called build up risk homeostasis. So what is build up risk homeostasis? Is when, for example, you're flying the XL, okay, or you're training for the XL, and you're hovering in front of a spot where you would like to top land, but you see that it's a sketchy one, and it's a dangerous one. And you're like, oh, that's dangerous. But at one point you decide to go for it, and somehow you manage to put it down. And you, boom, done. You top landed. You're not injured. You got away with it. Okay. The next time around, when you fly in front of that place, when you look at it, you won't see as sketchy, as dangerous as the first time because you got away with it.
Yeah.
You know? So that's build up risk homeostasis. And another example I can give you is the acropilot that is doing WAGA and it's like doing big wing over very close to the cliff, very close to the ground. And suddenly with his harness, he does a passage where he brings some gravel off the ridge, you know, but doesn't get hurt, no injury, gets away with it. And the other thing that gets in the way is that when you do experience something like that, instead of go on landing and put your hand between your hands and say, fuck, what did I do? I could break my back. I could have killed myself doing that. You actually get a nice squirt of dopamine and a buzz of excitement. If you remember when you were giving me, we were on Skyport, Logan was there, you were giving me, you were working on my phone. You gave me this option on Fly Sky High to see the airspace horizontal. That, by the way, that was awesome. Thank you, because I really love it. And on the side, when you were busy doing that, and I was watching what you were doing, this pilot taking off forward, he gets deflation on the right, deflation on the left, loses control of his wing. Logan is in the background screaming, target, target, target. He managed to jump off, take off, pum, boom, pum, everything is open. He flies away and he goes, yoo-hoo! Well, that's exactly that buzz of excitement that I was talking about. So
celebrating less than mediocrity.
But that's built up risk homeostasis. You know,
Sure.
I mean, so now once we know things like that, okay, and we experience again that kind of situation, maybe we don't have to go and punish ourselves and go and land in a good flying day and sit on the rock with your head between your hands, but take a mental note, and when you land, think about it.
Yeah.
You know, to avoid that buildup.
I had an incident. I don't even know if I ever told anybody about it. It was the very last day of the Sierra. We did this thing called Surfing the Sierras. It was my first big bivvy. It was from Waltz up to the Oregon border, and Antoine Laurens and Nick Grease and Eric Reed and Oriol Fernandez, all these pilots that were just Brad Sander, all way above my level. And I was just a kid in a candy store with these guys. It was amazing. And as the expedition went on, you know, Brad got hurt and Oriole saw a bear and got freaked out. And, you know, so it thins out as we head north. And at the end, it's just Antoine and Eric Reed and I. And it was really stable. It was October. It was very into the season, and I can't remember where they were, but I was trying to dig out. It was really light, and but I was still a pretty new pilot. This is 2012, so I've been flying 6-7 years at that point, and I made the mistake of turning too tight to the hill, and in the back end of the turn, hit a bunch of sink. And I had that nightmare scenario where suddenly I was, a lot of energy and going to pound right into the hill. And I landed, crashed right in between two big boulders. If I'd hit the boulder on one side or the other side, it would have been game over. Or at
Did
least
you spin the glider?
Really
And
no, I was just spiraling. I was basically just circling in this thermal, but on the backside of the thermal, I hit more sink than I was expecting to. So instead of doing figure eights, instead of doing what you learn and what you teach and what you should have done, I'm with the big boys now. And I crashed, hit the ground. I was so embarrassed. Oh my God, I was so embarrassed. And I just couldn't believe that I'd done it. And I don't think I told those guys, but the shot of adrenaline was real. It was like, whoa, I got away with it, only because I was on the ground that I got to think about it. I got to think, wow, that was incredibly stupid.
That forced you to, yeah.
Yeah. And for years after that, I was so careful about turning close to the hill. It was really one of those things where
if you would have maybe even spun your glider and fly away from it, you would have gone maybe to, whoa.
That was great. Nailed that. Yeah, exactly. It was a real wake up call for me.
To learn with, from. Sorry.
Yeah, and like you said, like Jeff Shapiro always talks about, it was an inexpensive mistake, and we need those. Those are important to get. You got to get some inexpensive mistakes because you learn it and you go, that makes sense, but how many people have pounded really hard doing that, in all the years? A lot of people have done that, and and you don't walk away from it. And so I got lucky. And but yeah, it's that it was definitely that, ooh, I got away with that.
We talk about it a lot in SIV after the spin briefing, because in your case you didn't, but and probably most cases end up in an accidental spin, because you're supposed to do figure eight. The instructor told you that at the beginning you should do figure eight until you clear the ridge, and then you can do your 360. But then one day, bam, you think you got it, and now you do your first turn towards the ridge, and you're down. When you get pushed towards, you see the terrain coming fast, and now you try to turn away from it and go more on the brake, and you end up spinning the glider. So that's one of the most common accidental spin in paragliding. One is when you're terminaling, but that's not really common. I think the most frequent one is that scenario. Totally. That's why I asked you if you spun it.
Dylan, tell me about this. Kind of ties into what we were talking about before, but with instruction and instructors at varying levels. But tell me about the conflict of interest in the system. And I don't know that if you can speak to it too in other countries. Is it universal, or is it?
No, it's not. There are some places where it's not like this, and in aviation, I think in general, it's never like this. In other branches of it, but
define it first.
But first I want to say that I'm not judging or pointing finger or attacking anybody. I think there's a system that it's like this. And I'm not saying that the people that are doing it are responsible for it, or they created to kind of get some kind of advantage out of it. I think it's weird when I look at a system that allows the same person that sells you gears, glider, harness, reserve, instrument, whatever, and I sell gear too. I'm a deal to release to give you your ratings. I don't think that makes any sense, So I gave you the example. So what if you go to a Ford dealership and the same guy that you buy an $85,000 truck from gives you your license, your driving license? the road will turn into a shit show, And again, it's not to point a finger, it's not to judge anybody or attack anybody, but I think it's something that in the future, with time, okay, should be addressed. And I think in Italy, when I started, so basically, what in other country, what you do, you go into school, and your instructor will sell you your gears, will teach you how to fly, will even prepare you for the exam. So they will go through the exam with you, but then you have to travel to a neighboring region or state to do your exam with a commission of examiner. Yeah, few instructors that are being hired and paid from the federation, so the local USPA, let's say. Okay, and they don't know you, and that's where you do your exam.
Brilliant. Yeah,
and again, I know that in a situation where we are, it's all like, hey, it's already difficult like this. We don't have pilots, we don't have instructors, and it's just like out of convenience that we're doing what we're doing the way we're doing it. But again, this is a young nation, and if others did better, we should do better than them.
Yeah,
because looking at them, we can take their system, they start with. You can do a copy and paste, and then make it better, because that's what younger generation are supposed to do. That's
improve.
It's our duty to do that.
Dylan, you're a fan of flow and Mihai, Csikszentmihalyi, and you and I have had some great talks about psychology and flow state. You're incorporating psychology now into your courses as well, which I think is kind of nouveau and fun and important. Let's touch on that, and then I wanted to end on your recent reserve toss that you had, because I think that was that was a good. There's some good takeaways there.
Yeah. So we're going to probably scare people away from the clinics. They're going to say, "What, this dude? Instead of telling me to teach me how to pull strings, he's going to keep me there and he's going to start talking about psychology." Yeah. Well, yeah. So if you're about to come to a clinic, get ready for that. There's going to be a few hours where we do talk about that. We talk about decision-making process. We talk about dealing with fear and paragliding. I prepared this new talk about flow and in regards to safety recently, and I try to throw it out there. It all actually started with your podcast, and it's a couple of years ago, I think. I didn't used to listen to podcasts. As you know, I lived probably almost like 8 years in Africa, probably 8 to 10 years in Africa, then 7 years in Nepal. Never a good internet connection. I didn't even know what podcast is. Logan and Chris Garcia made a lot of fun of me. Oh, Dylan's just discovered podcasts. Like, well, yeah. So, but when I did, and especially the good ones, like Logan said from the beginning, oh yeah, listen to Gavin and listen to the episode with Adele. And that's the first. Yeah, that was insane. That was really good. And she mentioned Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and flow. I didn't immediately did research on it. I remember one day I was driving home, listening to the TED Talk, and there he was, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and I was like, wow. And I kind of like, wow, this stuff is really cool. So I bought the book, read the book, and that's where it all started. That's what I realized, that what I was doing, I was always sold out 6 months in advance. We had a lot, good success with the school. Everything was going great. But I suddenly wasn't happy anymore with the way I was doing it. I'm like, I cannot. I thought it was just it was limiting. It was I needed to do more. I needed to keep changing. I needed to keep learning something new. I needed to keep throwing new stuff into the mix. And because I hold that to my students, you can't just have I was never we were never an SIV checklist kind of thing. And probably that I always start my Thursday briefing say, this is not a checklist. Nobody should come here and expect to have to follow a program. Okay, it's not you coming in and adapt to the class. It's actually the course, the training that will have to grow around you, who you are, your pace, your rhythm, your skills, and your comfort zone. And that's what I tried to do. But still, that was not enough. And so I started studying more and more and more, and podcasts and pieces of your show and pieces of Judy and articles and which thanks to citation in the show, and I put together more talks and start talking more and more about psychology, because I think we hear a lot that the paragliding is it's more of a mental sport than a
Sure.
physical sport. Then the reality is 100% neuron. I mean, it's all that's sodium going in and potassium coming out from those pumps. I mean, it's mental, physical. It's the reality is 100% neuron. There's no physical or mental, but it's true that we hear that a lot, but we don't talk about it enough. We don't encourage students to dig into it, and some people do, like Mitch does. Mitch is into a lot, and I heard him many times. Like Logan will do it too, obviously, but probably not all instructors. They don't. So why are we saying that it's that is mostly a mental sport and not a physical sport if we don't encourage people to dig into it a little more? Recently, the last couple of clinics I did at the beginning, so students, before they come to a clinic, they fill out this form where they put down their experience, their glider, color, size, reserve, was a repack, and at the end, what do you expect from your SIV? What would you like to get out of it? And they're all like, "Oh, I want to become a safer pilot, an active pilot. I want to get to know my glider." But no one, and this is what I've been telling my students, no one ever mentioned, I'd like to know myself under this kind of condition, under pressure and stress, and because again, the three main components. I mean, we fly. One is the glider, two is the harness, and the third one is this us, our brain, the brackets. And so I think a basic understanding of the human mind and the way it works can go a long way when it comes down to paragliding. And we should encourage all our students to. At the end of the clinic, I put in the group chat that they use before the clinic to carpool, share camps. I always post at least 4 or 5 books and articles and podcasts, and to encourage them to keep digging into what we just scratched the surface from.
Let's put those what you suggest and all those in the show notes. And I remember from the talks that that's a talk in itself. We don't have the time to really dig into all that now, but I would say the same. I mean, I just got to experience it in the X-Alps. The physical output is insane, but how you do well in that race is between your 2 ears, and for sure. And so that's great. Well, we'll add a bunch of stuff to the show notes from that.
Yeah, we can put those articles and books. The only brief thing that if you still have time that I want to mention about flow, because oftentimes we hear people talking about flow and the zone, but it's mostly related to paragliding performance optimization. Okay, it's never, and after I'm not done studying it again. Obviously, I want to read more and more and more. I started writing down, and it's a talk that again I started using at the SIV, the relation between being in the flow state and safety. Are we safer in flow than when we're not? And so not just like we're not just like performing skyrocketing in the shortcut to mastery and all the advantage from from the state, but it's like, are we safer when we're in flow? And I think yes, we are. We're not just like increasing our performance. We're not just like improving our performance. We are safer.
Sure.
And so. Obviously, when you talk to students, they don't have much experience, and they're still in this like small bubble. Their sphere of understanding, going back to the young pilot that still doesn't speak the language. And, like we often make the mistake. We tell people, oh, you have to look around. You should look for a sign for birds. And sometimes we don't stop and think, is he ready for that? Because, like when you start driving a car, you need to think, especially in Europe with the stick, you need to think clutch, brake, gas, gear, and turning signals and stuff.
In the beginning, it's
and you're
not
really
natural.
lucky if you can see the pedestrian crossing. You're really lucky if you don't kill someone in the first few months. Then it becomes like muscle memory, and now you can still look around. You can still kind of multitask while you're driving, whatever. Same for a paragliding pilot. At the beginning, you still have to think, look, lean, brake when you want to turn. You still hear the voice of your instructor saying that. And so when you tell a pilot to look for birds, when their bubble, their sphere of understanding is so small, it will expand with time and experience, and they'll be able to see the bird, to see the butterfly trapped in a terminal. They'll see the other pilots climbing faster than that. But at the beginning, when we tell them that, again, we move that bar too fast, and now we might put them in a position where everything becomes overwhelming and therefore dangerous. That there's I think, well, it's I guess it's a long one that flow disc. We'll have a discussion about for another time. It is, and I know you're
fascinating subject. It truly is.
Yeah.
There's so many books and stuff on it, and they got the flow lab and everything else. Dylan, last one that I want to touch on is the takeaway from your reserve toss in Santa Barbara this spring. That was more, not even the toss and all that. That ended up being exciting but benign. It was more the reason for it. I think is a great. I've incorporated this in my own life. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think I hope there's something to learn from that. And even if all my friends still making fun of me for that, but so I was flying before I started flying, I guess. So with Maria, my wife, we did set some rules when it comes to the flying, if I'm flying. And one of them is the phone call. So if she calls me, I have my phone on my flight deck like everybody else, and I use it also as an instrument with others and stuff. But if she calls me and I'm flying, I will answer the phone. And if I don't answer, she knows that I'm flying. She doesn't call me again, unless it's an emergency. Okay, so if something happened to her or the kids, then she'll call me again. And if I see the phone ringing the second time, now I know it's an emergency and I have to answer and deal with it. Okay. So that day she drove me up takeoff with the kids in the car. And I was there with Garcia. We got to take off. It was not really flyable yet. It was hot. And she decided to leave because we said that we were probably going to have to wait an hour or 10 minutes. We don't know. So she left. Now she's driving down the mountain, this windy road with the kids. 10 minutes later, probably we're in the air. Good cycle, boom, boom. You know how that works, Mm-hmm. It's not working, and boom, suddenly it works, and everybody's like, bam, 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 let's get out. We want to go as far as possible. So now I'm flying, and we climb above the ridge. We start going towards the back, and I'm following Chris. Chris is in front of me, and I see he's also flying a two-line air matter, and he's going through some pretty good turbulence. His glide is kind of all over the place, and it keeps going and goes through it. And I know that I'm going to have to deal with the same thing. So I'm full bar on my B's, and the phone goes off. The phone goes off the first time. I look down, I see it's Maria, and I don't answer, obviously, because I'm in rough air. It stopped ringing and immediately started ringing again. Okay. So that's when I forgot everything I teach, everything I preach or teach or whatever. And I stayed on bar. I didn't release my bar. I just let go of the bees. I had battery gloves on. I was not using, obviously, because it was not that cold yet, but I could not swipe the phone open to answer. Now in my head, she's driving down the mountain with the kids in a windy road. All this crazy images are starting to like going on in my head. And I managed to take out my gloves and I answered the phone. And when I answered the phone, I'm like, what happened? And she said, your inReach is not on. So I go, okay, like, fuck, So I hang up the phone, put it back on the flight deck, and the second I stick it to the Velcro, I lost probably 70% of the glider one, and I'm still in full bar. So I'm in rough air on the Xeno, full bar, lost the 70%, big crevasse, started going straight into an auto. And I'm not that high. I don't know how high am I? I am probably 1,000. I started trying to recover the auto. It was a big one. So I brought it out of an auto rotation the first time and immediately went straight back into it. And that's when I saw the ground coming fast. So I tossed the first one, it went into the line, even if I tossed really hard, and the second one opened and saves me basically. So with that one, again, it's difficult when we do stuff. And like what we do it's tough on our partners. It's tough on people we love. And then again, this year we had, again, accident, and we lost people that we love, people that we know, people that we just heard about. So when you're married to someone, I guess, and you have kids with him, knowing that he flies and he can die every time he does this thing, it's normal to be anxious and struggle with it. It's very hard, and sometimes our partners end up pouring that anxiety into us, maybe even before we fly, and I think that's toxic. I know we can do everything to try to understand and to be there and talk about it. But I guess for that one too, there's a time and a place. It should never be even the night before a big flight. That's not the time and the place to talk about anxiety and let it pour into us right before a big flight or on your way to takeoff, even worse. And so when we do set certain rules, this is aviation. Those rules are there to keep us safe. I remember blaming Maria. I mean, I wasn't blaming Maria. I was pissed. I did blame Maria. Actually, I did. And it's stupid because I should have just not answered the phone right there. I should have got off bar, spiral down, top land, or put myself in a safer position, answer the phone, and then get really mad because now my flight was over. But that would have been the right reaction, instead of like, I lost it. I lost the idea that something happened to my kids and my wife. My brain stopped working, and I just dropped everything except for the bar, and I got in serious trouble. So,
I mean, again, I guess this is blatantly obvious, but just to make sure it gets pointed out, is it's also really good to have a very specific rule about very specific things. You had the rule, it got broken, and it had consequences. And it's, and it was, she just loves you and you're worried about her. And it's, it was all totally innocent, but it was, I'm sure, led to a conversation like, hey, we have to have these rules because they're important. And I didn't have that rule with my wife. I didn't even think about that. But it's a really good rule. It really makes sense. And the other thing you just mentioned that I hadn't thought about the first time around was, missing a big flight. Who gives a shit? We got a million opportunities for that, and I mean, I actually did that in the 2019 race to my great detriment. All I had to do, I took off without my jacket and my stuff because Ben and I were going to go fly over 2K to another hill and start there. I launched and it was on. We didn't think it was going to be on, and I ended up freezing to death and blowing my flight. All I had to do was land. I mean, all I had to do was just top land right where he was, get my stuff and take off again. I've lost 2 minutes, it's no big deal. So, I mean, it's good to think about, okay, well, this might take a little bit longer, but what's the safe way to play this here?
Yeah. Well, in that position was difficult, and it was. So actually, Maria said that she didn't know I was flying, and which, like, at the beginning, I was like, "What do you mean you didn't know I was flying? You drove me to takeoff." But she heard probably us saying that maybe it's not
probably going to be
another hour, So in her head, I was not flying. And that's why even if maybe she thought that my phone was not nearby and I didn't hear a ring, and maybe it was, my phone is always on silent. So I never have it on ringtone.
Yeah.
Already, I told you. So Maria's nuts. She's crazy. And she's really crazy. Now, let me say this another one. She's nuts, but she's the most incredible human being. Everything that you saw, the clinic and everything, all of this exists just because of her. I'm the SAV instructor. Everything else, she created a company.
You know what? She might be nuts, but it's actually your fault. If you would have had your inReach on, you would have been fine. You made the mistake. It was your fucking fault. But
you're not healthy. She's going to listen to this. You're not healthy.
Good. Well, our significant others are always right. Yeah. We're the ones that are wrong. Yeah. We're the ones doing this dumb sport. Dylan, I appreciate it. Your time is awesome. You're great at what you do. I got so much out of your training and your acro training and watching you teach these students to go have fun in the absurdity. And I can't wait to come back out with you with Ben and Benny this fall and do more acro training. And truly, your training really came in handy just very short time afterwards when I had that crash here in Sun Valley. So thank you for that as well. And thank you for the debrief. And thank you for being you, dude. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So, for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.